to the show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Off the Mats Podcast. All right. So this week for the podcast, so for this month, I've been trying to do Christmas stuff, and here we are, already 2 episodes in. I still haven't decided to do any holiday or Christmas stuff. I'm a piss poor host, which is fine, but that's okay because I don't have to do things because I like to have guests on that are fun and things we want to talk about. So this week on the podcast, I'm going to welcome BJJ Black Belt Bryant Estrada onto the podcast. Brian and I have been conversing on Instagram a little bit here, just going back and forth. He's been sharing technique videos. So, we got to talking and chatting, and I was like, dude, we're relatively close to each other for the most part. We're both on the East Coast, so I always call that close. So figure let's go ahead and get on the podcast, converse, chit chat, and get to know each other. So Brian, welcome to the show. How you doing, my friend?
Oh, doing fantastic, man. Thank you for having me. Very, very pleasure of mine to be on.
Thank you for doing this. I always appreciate anyone sharing their time with me because, time is valuable. Time, it's currency. So anyone that comes onto the podcast and shares their time with me, I greatly appreciate it. So thank you, my friend.
Oh, absolutely. Pleasure's all mine.
So I guess, my first question is, and I know a lot of people always kind of give me shit for this because they're like, everybody gets all the same questions all the time. It's like, that's fine. But, I haven't asked questions, so I want to have the conversation with you. So you've got your black belt. So I would assume, you're well settled into BJJ at this point. But, what got you started in all of it, and when did you start?
So I basically started, I grew up with martial arts. So when I was about 8 years old, I started training just traditional boxing. And I started wrestling when I was about 13 years old. And I wasn't good at soccer. I sucked at it. Being Peruvian, everybody always expects like, oh, you're going to play soccer, right? I'm like, no, actually I came from the inner city, so I played basketball a lot. I'm 5'5", and who would have thought a kid like this could play ball? So I did that for a few years, and I stumbled upon wrestling when I was 13. And after wrestling, like for so long, there's only so much you can do with that. It's either go straight into MMA or do jiu-jitsu. So I decided, hey man, I'm gonna try my hand at jits. So I started jiu-jitsu in 2008. Yeah, and then I trained with quite a few high-level guys, and I just realized I was really, really good at jits. Wrestling definitely helped me out with that, and I've traveled around the world, quite a few places, so I've made a lot of connections with jiu-jitsu. Very blessed to do that.
Oh, good. Yeah. When you got started, coming off the wrestling background, was there any kind of especially coming from wrestling, the last place you want to be is on your back.
Yes.
So going into jiu-jitsu, how did that transition go for you as far as like, did you kind of come out of it, relatively, quickly, or did it take you some time to, embrace fighting off of your back?
So I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It sucked. Like it was horrible. It took me about 3 years to get comfortable off my back. The only thing I would say, there's quite a few factors that help a wrestler in jiu-jitsu. And that would be, we're used to high-paced matches. So we're constantly sprinting. As in traditional jiu-jitsu, people, if you're not used to that sprint type of factor and they're doing the whole slow, steady type of game, wrestlers can actually, wear out the jiu-jitsu person. And as well, I would definitely say it helped me with my scrambles a lot. So being able to scramble out of bad situations definitely carried over into jiu-jitsu. So when it came to like being comfortable scrambling from bottom to wrestle up, I would definitely say wrestling played a big part into that.
I can see that. When I started training, there are a few guys that were wrestlers, and me, I don't know anything. I'm just in there like tackle. Like my whole thing is when I first got in there, I was just like, yeah, just be strong and start like throwing people around. And then a couple of guys, again, they were wrestlers, and the scrambles. That's all it was like just these, like the old school cartoons where you see like a cat and a dog fighting.
Yeah, like that little tornado. That's kind of exactly what it is, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like you're in a blender.
Yeah. Yes. That was always my feeling with it. And I loved it because, again, I didn't really know any jiu-jitsu. My ideal of jiu-jitsu was just that, scrambling, until my coach pulled me aside and was like, you got to kind of pace yourself, dude, and, look for openings. I was like, huh? What?
Well, I think that's, again, it's funny that you say that, like stop and look for openings. So as wrestlers, we're taught go, 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 sprint for it's 2 minute periods for three periods, so 6 minutes. So we're used to sprinting for a whole 6 minutes. Now in jiu-jitsu, you always hear settle down, settle, keep good position. That was the hardest thing to do as a wrestler. Fighting off of my back obviously took me 3 years, but the good part about that was I could scramble and get into a good position. But now holding the position to a submission was I would say the hardest thing was to be able to control my levels of 0 to 100, because you're so used to going 90 miles an hour, going 40 miles an hour. Now to slow that down, it's like kind of like something going against what we were taught as wrestlers. So, being a wrestler obviously gives you the strength, the endurance, all the physical aspects. But when it comes to the technicality of slowing things down for jiu-jitsu to play a high-level game, that's where it starts to get complicated.
I saw our wrestling coach at my old gym. And I remember going to a competition and watching him, and he got out there and boom, immediately double leg. He gets the guy down, and I'm standing on the sideline, and one of the guys, nudged the other and goes, "Yo, homeboy's a wrestler." And he made quick work of his opponent. So then his next match, one of the guys who was standing there observing, he goes in there and immediately, sits the guard. And my teammate / coach, essentially dove into a triangle. And it was like, and I'm still new at this point, so I don't know what's going on. I don't really understand it. I was just like, oh man, like I knew that I was falling into a triangle for sure, but I was like, oh man, that sucks. But I didn't understand like that his pace, he's still pushing and going, while the other guy was, really kind of, collected and again, looking for his shots and got it. But that was a lesson for me, as a, someone watching the match and then kind of figuring out for my own game. And I was like, okay, now I get what coach was saying. Like kind of look for your openings.
So you actually reminded me of the first jiu-jitsu gym I went to. So I'm in Jersey. I went to this jiu-jitsu gym called Performance. And I looked like a douchebag. I walked in with my wrestling shoes. I had a knee pad on. And like the instructor's like, hey man, let's roll. And I took a double leg. I took him down. And just like you said, I dove straight into a triangle. And I ended up waking up at the lights. That was my first jiu-jitsu class. So that you gave me a flashback there. I completely forgot about that story until now.
So when you were, going through that phase, for those first 3 years of really trying to get comfortable off your back, when was the moment that you truly, like, what was it like that moment that you truly embraced jiu-jitsu and fighting off your back?
So it was actually with my coach. It's a previous coach from before. I would say last time we worked together was about 6 years ago. I pulled half. I went into deep half guard, and he said, "Bryant, I'm gonna give you your badge of honor, and this is gonna make you move off of your back." And I go into deep half, and he pulls his lapel out as I'm in deep half and goes on my left ear and just starts rubbing his lapel on my ear. And it just completely blew my ear up. And I'm like, whoa. And he's like, you got to move. You got to move. He's like, if this was on the street, I would have killed you. So that's when everything started to click. I remember going deep half. I went waiter sweep. I swept him, get into side control. And he looks at me and he's like, was it that hard? And I'm like, no, it wasn't. And he goes, all right, then. Every time you're on your back, you got to think as if you're getting killed. And I'm like, all right, cool. So it's funny. Like I remember as if it was yesterday.
So as you progressed with your training, again, coming off of wrestling, and then you got boxing, in your pocket as well, and now along with jiu-jitsu, did you transition or consider doing any transition into like full-on MMA?
Yeah, so I'm actually a former 126-pound champion for a Dead Serious organization. Actually, this is they're not going to see it, but I'll show you my belt. This is actually my championship belt here that I won. Yeah, I made the transition. I did 3 fight camps in Thailand. So I lived in Phuket for about 6 months. I trained with names like I was actually with Chris Cyborg. We were wrestling partners for about 2 weeks. As well, I trained with Thomas Almeida. He's fought at 135 pounds in the UFC. And I actually trained with him the fight after he got knocked out by Cody Garbrandt. And Anthony Pettis was there. We had Michael Bisping there. So I've trained with like a bunch of guys, and I transitioned into MMA. My first fight was actually 2012, and I fought in the Knicks Stadium over in White Plains, New York. That was the first time I fought for a belt, and that was pretty cool. And I actually ended up losing. I got dropped in the third, and I got choked by Rear Naked, and it was a pretty close fight. But I made the transition. It was pretty awesome. I mean, I wish I could still fight now, but my body says otherwise.
Wrestlers that you guys are too tough for your own good. Sometimes from what I've seen with wrestlers, it's like, geez Louise, like, you're gonna give your body a rest. I think combat athletes are all crazy.
Absolutely.
It's like we're choosing to go out there and do these activities that it's kind of relaxing for most of us. It's calming, but from the outside eye, it's like, oh my God,
crazy.
You're crazy. You're fighting your friends, which for me, anytime my goddaughter or my good friend, they end up dating someone, my first thing is always like, when I meet the guy, the first thing in my mind is like, dude, you want to, like, we got some mats, you want to
always
go over and wrestle?
Well, but you want to make sure that obviously your loved ones are with someone that you can trust them with mind and body. But I completely understand that. I mean, a lot of the times what happens is so like if we go to the bar, like some guy will like stand next to my wife, and he'll try to talk to her, and then he like looks over and glances at my ear, and he's like, hey man, no problems. It's like, yo, it's all good. I understand my wife's attractive. It's cool. I take it as a compliment. Don't even sweat it, dude. Like, it's all as well. So, and then I think what people don't tend to realize is what you might see as crazy from the outside eye. We're training, we're trying to choke each other, but we're probably the most, like, the nicest people you'll ever meet, because all of our aggression is already taken out.
Absolutely. I always try to stress that to people. It's like, martial artists are some of the nicest people you'll ever encounter. Just because, like you said, our aggression, it's like, it's not even that we're trying to like hurt each other when we're even training. It's just that that physical movement in itself. But also, I know, for speaking for myself, just out there on the mat, if I'm going through something mentally tough, like, getting out there on the mat and kind of getting focused on that helps me kind of wear it down, and then just really like think like, well, look, right now I'm like, being mounted by a 270-pound guy. This is pretty pretty tough, and I got to get out of here. Meanwhile, that tenant that I had screaming at me earlier, that's no longer an issue to me. That's a walk in the park. Like, I want them to scream at me all the time, versus being stuck under this person. Now I need to figure this puzzle out. Let's not think about what's going on out there. Let's think about this puzzle in front of me. So my wife's friend once made a comment about grapplers, period. It was a misinformed comment. But she was like, they're always picking fights and, they're always so aggressive. And it's like, oh my God, like, you don't know anything about us.
No.
So I don't know. It's silly.
What ends up happening? So the funny part about that is, I mean, you might have the guy who's a fighter, and then they do try to pick the fights. That is the one with the most insecurities. That is the one who picked up this sport because he wanted to show everyone else that he was better than what they thought. In my eyes, a true martial artist picks this up just for themselves, not to prove anything to anyone else. It's just for themselves, and that's it. But I mean, hey man, like, everybody has their own agenda. I mean, I could be wrong, and look, like, just like in jits, my style may not work for you, your style may not work for me. We all have an opinion. But from what I've seen, I'm 20 years deep now into training. It's been tried and true. A lot of the guys who do pick fights are the most insecure guys. I saw this video the other day, and it was like, this is how you know fighters don't want to pick fights. Think about one thing. A guy who lays brick every day goes into a bar with his girlfriend, and then there's a guy sitting next to him at the other side of the bar or whatever, and goes, hey man, I guarantee you I can lay brick better than you. The guy who just got off his job is going to go, okay, man, like, I really don't care. I just finished working. I do this 40 hours a week. I don't want to do it. No, but I guarantee you I can do it. He's like, oh, really? Like, I do this all the time. A true martial artist is going to say, I don't want to fight. I get beat up in the gym all the time by, like, professionals who do this. Why am I going to want to do this on the street? Now, the insecure person is going to say, I'm going to show you. Like, why? It's unnecessary, completely unnecessary. So,
absolutely, and I like that. I like that analogy there. It's a weird thing that we all take part of, where again people like to assume, these guys, super aggressive meathead stuff, and that's not to say, those guys aren't out there. Like you said, there are guys who, may pick up the sport for one reason or the other. And, you wonder, even with that, it's like, where's your ego? Did you check your ego, or are you still carrying it?
Yeah, it's very scary. Like, so I've dealt with a few fighters in the past. So, I don't know if it's okay to say it, but like, I am a head coach at one of the gyms. So I've dealt with some fighters where you kind of want to stick away from feeding egos to fighters, like feeding into their ego. And like, it's good to like believe your own hype, but like, believe your own hype with, I guess, when it comes to like the promotion. But don't start like, there's two lives. There's the promotion life where this is what the outsiders see, and then there's the backstage life where it's like, hey, like, I'm your coach, I'm your friend. And he was letting that kind of like bleed into his regular day, and he was feeding his ego, and he was just trying to fight everyone at the gym, and things didn't work out. This was quite a few years ago, but things didn't work out. And it sucks that it does have to get that way.
Yeah, it's it's unfortunate, but I think at the end of the day, though, a lesson hopefully is learned by that fighter, that maybe, just maybe, maybe I should dial it back,
Yeah.
Or check myself, something. But hopefully on the other end, it all like worked out down the line for him. So along the journey for you, delving into MMA, and then becoming a champion as well. For you doing that, between that and jiu-jitsu, like, were you competing in jiu-jitsu as well, or just kind of sharpen your tools there and, kind of carry it over to MMA?
So, I mean, what was great about that is I knew I was pretty well rounded on the ground. So it was mainly just sharpening those tools, just like you said, with my stand up and my transitioning my stand up to my wrestling, which you can be a great collegiate wrestler, right? But you may not be the best MMA wrestler. There's levels to it. So you got to realize, like, even Habib, not a collegiate wrestler whatsoever by our standards, but was great at and is still great at sambo. So it was me more or less finding that medium ground where I can mix in my wrestling with my striking, and then the jiu-jitsu followed that. So it was me really focusing on my wrestling, transitioning to my striking. And the jiu-jitsu does help a lot because helps me with like mat awareness, or like in what we call it, like cage awareness. Like you have to know, okay, like if my back is against the wall, I'm really not going to try to do any inverts. I'm not going to go for leg locks, because you do leg locks while you're against the cage, you're going to get ground and pounded. If you go deep half against the cage, someone's going to post out and they're going to ground and pound you. So I really, really wanted to focus on being the aggressor with my wrestling and my striking. And then I trained jujitsu. I was still training 5-6 days a week, but most of my time was just polishing my tools for MMA.
And where you are now as a black belt in jiu-jitsu, I know right now you've got some injuries kind of limiting you right now, prohibiting you from competing and really getting out there any further. Upon recovery, however long that may take you, is the thought in your mind to compete in jiu-jitsu or even try to go back into the cage?
So the cage is done. That is something that I've talked to my wife about. I've had about 10 fights, 10 cage fights, and I'm completely over getting punched in the head, if that makes any sense. With the injury wise, I have in total 5 herniated discs in my back, and I do have a torn labrum in my left leg. 2 herniated discs are in my cervical, 3 are in my lower lumbar. I was in my last camp in Thailand, and I told my wife, we just finished watching the movie Southpaw with Jake Gyllenhaal. And in the beginning of that movie, he was talking to his wife before she died. Sorry if I ruined that for anyone.
No, it's been out long enough.
All right, cool. She tells him, like, hey, look, you're taking a lot of damage in the fights, and he's like, well, I won, didn't I? And he looks at her and says, if you ever start seeing me take a lot of damage, once you tell me to quit, I'm done. And I was prepping for a rematch to get my belt back because I lost it by decision. And I was in a sparring session, and I got clipped on the top of my head, and I felt a weird click in my neck. And the next morning, I couldn't move my right arm. And I look at my wife, and we go to the doctor. They give me the diagnosis, and she looks at me and says, "You're done." And I'm like, "I'm done. Never doing it. Never putting on the gloves again. Not even to spar, not to mess around. I'm done getting punched." Now, when it comes to jiu-jitsu, I will definitely step back on that mat. Absolutely. I competed in the ADCC trials, the last one that just came out. So I got past the first round, and then I actually ended up losing to a really, really good black belt from 10th Planet. His name's Ben Eddy. I don't know if you've heard of him, but that guy is the man. He caught me in Dead Orchard and got me in an armbar. Well, I did get a takedown on him. I got a double leg. And we did talk afterwards. We laughed about it. He's like, dude, he's like, you're pretty strong. That double leg was super clean. And I'm like, I know, but what no one really did know was I fractured my foot when I took that double leg. And I played the video back, and I'm like, oh man, that sucked. But either way, he was gonna get me either way. But I was just happy to know that I was on that mat with these world-class guys. And but once I'm all fixed, I'm definitely gonna step on the mat. Absolutely, I'll compete in jiu-jitsu. until I can't anymore. Like until I'm like gray and old, I'm definitely gonna compete. Absolutely.
Good, good. Uh, I think that too kind of shows another side that people don't get to see is you got out there competed with a world class grappler, and he got you with the armbar. But the thing is, there's no resentment afterward. You guys talk. I, that's a beautiful thing about even MMA. When you see fighters after a good fight in the cage, and then afterward they're all hugging and taking pictures together and talking. Hell, even Mighty Mouse and Henry Cejudo, are working together.
Oh yeah, my idols, by the way. Must have.
Oh yeah, it's funny, like so many. Well, because Henry Cejudo, he kind of leans into that king of cringe thing, but the dude is such a good wrestler, and I repost every so often, his techniques. And it's like he's so good at explaining things, but people want to hate him.
Well, I mean, so the thing about him is, he wants to sell the fight, 100%, and you can tell it's not his persona, the cockiness and all that stuff. Definitely not his persona, but the way he breaks down things and articulates it is just something that I hope one day to get to. And just if I don't know if you've seen it, but I put some breakdowns up, and I talk about him and his inside trips. I love his inside trips. They're awesome. I use inside trips in the clinch all the time, and yeah, anybody who ever wants to learn it, go to his page, and for sure he'll show you some good stuff.
That's where I picked it up. Like I picked up inside trip, and then when we would do, takedown month or anything like that, and we're really working on the feet, I'd always go for inside trip. I was like, oh my god, it does work.
Oh, it's fantastic! Once they square up, boom, inside trip.
Mm-hmm. And that was the thing, just like you said right there. Once they score up, to me, it always was in my head like, why would they even do that? That's weird. Like, but sure enough, it's like, oh my god, like people are just doing this. It's easiest right there. Like, the only thing is, it gets a little. If you mess it up, you can really fuck your knee. But like, fortunately, that didn't happen to myself nor any of my teammates. But it's a beautiful technique.
It's a very you got to feel the right scenario to do it. But going back to what you said, with us not having any animosity, I've actually shared a beer with every single person I've shared the cage with. Win, lose, I've always been like, hey man, let's go get a beer, because at the end of the day, man, like this is it's a very lonely sport. The last thing you want is animosity with someone you just shared the cage with or shared the mat with. I tell a bunch of my guys that whenever you're out there competing, win, lose, or draw, you leave as part of yourself on that mat.
Definitely.
You take something, which is you take something from them, which they obviously give you some positions that showed you were in danger, now you got to work out of, or you take from them that this is what I can do to someone. So it's a very intimate scenario that I don't think a bunch of us talk about. Everybody wants to talk about being the most, the beast on the mat, kill or be killed, but no one wants to talk about the intimacy that you have, a connection that you have with someone when you're trying to essentially knock each other or choke each other out. There's never any bad blood. I haven't had any bad blood with anyone that I fought. Maybe they talked a lot of smack prior to, and we got into the cage, and there was this one kid from Pennsylvania. I beat him up pretty bad. And he comes up, he's like, I was just trying to sell the fight. I was like, it's all good, man. Like, I get it. Don't even sweat it. Like, he was posting all these things online, and he, like, messaged me through Facebook Messenger one day. And, like, we had this whole conversation. I'm telling him I'm going out to Thailand, and he, like, cropped it saying, oh, he's going out to Thailand. See, he's scared of me, so that's why he's going there. And I'm like, no, dude, like, I just had an opportunity. I'm taking it. And afterwards, we shared a beer. It was cool.
That's again, one of the beautiful things about this sport is, those types of things could be done. Because like you said, being in that cage, there's a shared moment there, and not many people can say that they've done this. Not many people can say that they've been in the cage and done that. Like you all. So not many people can understand it. Even myself as a fan, watching this, I can appreciate and admire the beauty and just everything that's taking place there, and seeing like after a fight with Dustin Poirier and
Chandler.
What's that?
Are you talking about Dustin Poirier Chandler?
Yeah, I don't know why. And I love Michael Chandler. For some reason, the name just dropped for some reason. But yeah, like after, because going into it, I guess whatever altercation they had a while back, sparked up something. And, that fight happens. And, then afterward, they're real cool to each other. And, it was really, seeing that from the outside, it's like, that is really cool. But for you all, yourself being in there and understanding and knowing that emotion and that feeling, and then after we're having a beer with your opponent, who again, like I said, you get these guys now like Mighty Mouse and Cejudo who fought, and now they're training together. You go from opponent to friends, in some cases, so that's good.
Absolutely. I actually have two guys that I'll be working with that we were actually matched up together to fight for titles, and one's going to be training with me. One is actually now coming to me on Wednesdays, and we do wrestling and nogi. So I'm his wrestling coach, which is pretty wild. And he's a black belt as well. Very, very, very cool guy, man. If one day we can I'll let you talk to him, and then you would definitely like him. Very slick guy. Very, very slick.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely would, enjoy that and look forward to it. So, with all that you've gone through thus far, as far as again, wrestling, MMA, jiu-jitsu, is there anything, I guess, to your jiu-jitsu game, especially that you feel like you really kind of lean into, that you may take back from your other combat sports? What do you bring over from MMA onto the mats for jiu-jitsu?
My passing game. Definitely my passing game. So first of all, when you and I'm probably going to get so much crap about this, but a lot of MMA fighters who are high level grapplers will go against maybe a pure technician blue belt, right? And get starched, get completely destroyed. What helped me for MMA was being able to pass efficiently with purpose. Instead of ground and pounding, I learned how to maneuver, my hips, my weight with head positioning and whatnot, and how to pass efficiently without giving up a lot of space. So MMA definitely did help me out with that. And I learned the hard way because I just completely focused on jiu-jitsu. I completely focused on MMA. I learned the hard way that if I just stick to what I do in MMA, I'm going to get killed with jiu-jitsu guys. So I had to kind of find that happy medium of how to pass with pressure, with my head, but I'm not striking. So definitely helped my passing game for sure.
Okay. And what's your favorite pass?
That's a hard one because I get real fancy. So my favorite pass is a cartwheel pass.
Oh.
I do a cartwheel pass. Almost every roll. So what I do is if somebody's seated in butterfly guard, I'll bait my hips out because they try to swim their feet inside, and then I push their chest back with my lead hand, put their ankles up. As soon as they settle back down, I cartwheel pass.
Nice. Was not expecting that one. Most people are knee cut, pressure pass. It's cartwheel? Okay.
I'm a wrestler, man. I love putting that high pace because what happens is when you do that cartwheel pass, people panic. And it'll initiate the scramble. Because worst comes to worst, I end up in side control. That's the worst case scenario.
Yeah, true.
So that is my favorite pass.
Like it. All right.
How about
It,
yourself?
I like pressure passing. Um, I always joke with people just being older now. I always say like, man, I'm into old man jiu-jitsu. So I like to get like good pressure, good grips, good control, and just pressure my way through. Because like for me, one of the things that I worry about, if I'm trying to do a knee cut, or if like those are the two main ones. But like the knee cut, I like it. I want the knee cut to be there for me. I want it to be my thing. It's just there's so many moving parts to it
Yes.
that I feel like I'm missing something. And as I'm missing it, I'm overthinking it, and boom, there's already a knee shield up, or they've already gotten out into half guard, and they're trying to work deep half at this point. I'm like, well, shit, I'd have messed that up. Whereas with pressure passing, it's like I just got to get in tight,
Yeah.
and just pretty much trap and then like slowly work my way over.
It's a very methodical way of doing it. I like that. I do like that a lot.
And there's so many different parts to pressure passing too. There's the over under, double unders. It's just like so much to it. It's like, oh, okay, well, I can do this, and then if one doesn't work, you still have the pressure, so
Yeah.
they're still kind of controlled. So that's always been something that, as I started aging in jiu-jitsu, because when I started, I think I started at what, 37, maybe. That seems like a good number. 37 seems right. And
Oh, you were
again,
like 31.
I I wish, man, like my body feels like it's 51. Um, I just again, a knucklehead that played football and basketball and not understanding my body as a young man growing up. So I would always just throw myself out there and get demolished, thinking, no, that's your badge of honor, getting a concussion. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a kid of the 80s. So I'm like, concussions are cool. No, they're not.
I mean, I don't mean to interject, but correct me if I'm wrong. So this is actually a subject that I was actually talking to one of the other black belts at the gym. Growing up, now we have this new era where there's like a bunch of sports medicine and a lot of other options that help us, stay healthy. But growing up from our older generation, we were always taught, put some dirt on it, rub some dirt on it, you're fine. Are you hurt or are you injured? Those were the words that we were taught. So therefore, we weren't listening to our bodies. So just like you said, we just threw caution to the wind, and we would kind of just put our body through the ringer. And I'm paying for it now. That's 5 herniated discs and a torn labrum later. That's not including like the torn rotator cuff. I've broken my fingers more than twice. Like these are all the things that no one speaks about that should be spoken about. So
Yeah, it's those little details that, like, again, especially from an older generation, we just look at it like, like my hip has been shit since probably senior year of high school. And, I just kind of, and my wife, she's always like, you need to go to a chiropractor, maybe just need to be realigned. I'm like, no, I'll be good. I'm fine. I just got to stretch, and here I am now. And the funny thing is, like, once I'm on the mat, I'm not so worried about my hip. Like because I'm so just there. I'm not thinking about my hip. You I just go into it.
you probably don't feel it. You're probably in the moment, living the moment.
Yeah, exactly. So I do know there are moments where it's like, okay, my flexibility is compromised.
Yeah.
But I'm not hurt. And I just kind of go on with it. I think on the mat for these past however many years, 7 now I've been doing it, like fully, I guess 5. I've the only injury that I genuinely had was my first year. I rolled my ankle, really, like one of the other white belts. He had my back and he pulled me straight back over my knees. It caught my ankle underneath. Then I was at that time only training once per week. So I think part of it was I didn't have opportunities to really, put my body on the mat that much to encounter anything crazy. And then once I started training like 3-4 times a week, I separated my rib.
Oh man.
And it was possibly the second worst pain I'd ever encountered. I didn't know what was going on. I just heard a pop and a sharp pain, and I fell to the ground screaming. I was like, because I was with a wrestler, and I had him tied up, and he started standing, and I thought like, okay, I got this dude, and I went to lift him and like kind of bring him back down, gently, and as I lifted him, the way that I like kind of bent back,
okay,
I think I like just overextended myself, and I was like, oh boy. But even with those two things, it's like, okay, those were serious enough to keep me off the mat. Anything else, I always chalked it up to like, are you hurt or are you injured? And it was like, okay, I'm hurt. Fingers, like my left hand, it's of almost no use at this point.
How much tape do you use on your hand?
So I used to use a lot of tape. Now I don't even mess with it anymore. It's like, you know what? I'm putting this tape on. And I think part of it is I was putting it on not very well. So it just come right off. Not like immediately, but after about maybe an hour into class, it's like, okay, this is more in the way than not. So so on the mat, I don't use it a lot, but off the mat, like when I'm at home, if I'm playing video games or something, or if I'm down here in the basement standing up action figures, something just fell. I don't know what. I can't see who fell.
So that's
one of these action. Yeah.
Okay.
But that's when I usually put tape on, is like when I'm kind of around the house just doing like little fine motor things.
Okay.
But if I'm on the mat, I rarely use any tape at all, just because the way that I put tape on is almost kind of like you're wasting it. Just wait till you get home and utilize it properly.
Yeah, I tried to use tape for a while, and so with my left hand, my middle finger doesn't go straight up anymore. Yeah, that thing is pretty jacked up. It dislocated. It went all the way back, and it was my ring finger at first. Well, I was sparring, and some guy threw a kick, and I tried to parry it, and we were doing small gloves, and I felt like 2 cracks in my hand. So at first, I thought my hand broke. Immediately, I was like, my hand's broken. So I like put my hand under my armpit, and I'm like, oh my god, what do I do? So I call one of my students over. I'm like, yo, I need you to take my glove off, and if it's bad, do not let me look at it. But when I felt the snap, I immediately put my ring finger back in place. And my middle finger was not going. And I'm like, oh, no. So he takes the glove off, looks at it, looks back at me, and he's like, and calls like the owner of the gym. He's like, hey, Sensei Paul, come here. And they're like, what? And then they look at my hand. They're like, yeah, we got to go to the hospital. And I'm like, is it broken? They're like, we don't know. My whole hand swelled up. And yeah, I had to get put back in place. And now that thing it doesn't go straight anymore. That's as much. And yeah, I never used tape because I used to put it on way too tight and it would lose circulation. And I'm like, man, just forget it. I'm just going to let it rock. So like sometimes when I'm sleeping, if I put my hand by my ear, it pops in and out, which is kind of.
Like, I have the same issue with sleeping. Like this pinky is getting better, but it's like it's fine now. Like for the longest time, it was like this, and I was like, okay, all right. It has slowly been working its way out, and now that's about as
it's getting there.
Yeah, and then this pinky, it's about the same. They're both about kind of, not completely stretched out. But if I'm laying in bed, my head, my hands under my head or something, my big ass head like weighs on my pinkies, and I'm like, oh Jesus, this hurts. My other fingers, it's usually like that, the top knuckle that gets busted up, but those are
from your grip, right?
Yeah, that's just business as usual, just with the game. But I remember trying to take down one of my teammates, and again, inside, well, outside trip, and I got him down. But as we're going down to the ground, I don't know why my hand
Flared out.
was, yeah, and I felt my ring finger, my pinky finger just snap, like they bent. And I was like, oh my God, my ring finger, right as rain, nothing's wrong. That pinky, it's coming along. That was probably about a year ago now. So my wife, she keeps telling me like, oh, you need to like go have them break that and reset it. And I was like, I'm not willingly letting anyone break my finger, lady. Like,
Yeah.
like I got shit to do.
Excuse my language, but you got a better chance seeing God. Like that is not happening. No way.
Yeah, it's like, what is wrong with you?
And don't like, dude, don't even feel bad about it. Only because again, 20 years of wrestling, I still sometimes do it. I'll take somebody down, I put my hands out, and I'm like, and I constantly tell everyone, don't post with your hands, don't. And then my dumb ass, I fall down, boom, post my hand out. You learn that as a kid. That's the crazy part. When you're falling, don't put your hands out. Tuck in, and then we just do. It's just nature. I mean, it's just natural.
We were working single legs, and as you run the pipe, just break fall. And I remember telling one of the younger students, showing him how to break fall and everything, that he does it to me, and like a dummy, I throw my arm back. I didn't get hurt, but like I realized, like, oh my God, I'm a poor example.
This was when I was. You were gonna tell me like your elbow did this, like went inside or something.
So that almost happened once again early on when I was training. I think this was right around when I was able to start training multiple times per week, and I don't sleep very well. I'm usually up at bizarre hours of the night just for no reason. And I remember going in to train the next day, very little sleep, and it was a hard practice that morning. And I'm like just tired, like tired, being sleepy tired, but also physically tired from the training. And I remember someone went to open sweep me, like hip bump, and I went to post, and my arm buckled weird. And as he's continuing up with his sweep, fortunately my arm somehow just maneuvered right, so I didn't get injured. My coach looks at me, he's like, get up, sit down, you're out.
Oh snap.
And I was like, dude, come on. And me being me, I'm just like, no, I'm good. I was like, nope, sit down. Like you're beating your body to the ground right now. You need to just sit down and watch. It was the official class was over. We were now afterwards just kind of getting some live rolls in, drilling if we need to.
Like an open match.
Yeah. So I think there was like 4 or 5 of us there, and then my coach there as well. And he just had me sit to the side. And I get it. I appreciate him looking out for me. But at the time, I was frustrated because I was like, no, dude, I'm good. I can do this. I'm fine. I saw my mistake. Won't happen again. He was like, nope, I can't risk you getting hurt. Like, you got a job to go to. You can't just be out here getting hurt. I think at this point my daughter was born, so it's like your dad, like, you got to be smart. So
I think a lot of the time, especially once we're starting to get into our own rhythm, and this is something that I really, really emphasize when I teach a class, is that ego, which hey man, it happens to me. I'm super guilty. That ego has to be gone. Whether you think you can, like when the body says stop, it's time to say stop. With coming from my injuries and whatnot, I'm all banged up, and me being the dummy that I was yesterday, I thought, hey, I can roll. That's fine. And I rolled, and I come back home, and my wife looks at me, and she's like, really? It was worth it? I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, you're walking weird. And I'm like, I didn't even notice I was walking weird. But like, sometimes at the end of the day, our ego is going to be our worst enemy. For sure.
That's a fact. I always like to say that I have my ego in check. I don't think anyone completely has their ego in check. Um, we're humans, it's just it's there. I think the best we could really hope for is to kind of have an agreement with our ego.
There's something I don't know if you've ever seen Pulp Fiction.
Hmm.
Yes. All right. Perfect. So Marcellus Wallace is having the conversation with Bruce Willis at this time, and he says, they're talking about the whole, hey Bruce, that's not his name in the movie, but basically
Butch.
Willis, Butch. So they're telling Butch, hey man, like this, you're gonna take the dive, blah blah blah, like whatever. And Marcellus Wallace goes, hey man, don't let that shit get to you. You know, if you feel that itching behind your neck, that's pride getting you. Pride will get you hurt. Same thing comes when it comes to this sport. When I heard that, I was like, wow, it always stuck through me. And I don't know why I liked it when I was a kid. But once I got into combat sport, I realized I think I was supposed to hear it. For some reason, man. And that has always stuck with me. Anytime now, I feel like I'm pushing that limit of now this is the fine line of me being injured and me doing this for, shits and giggles. Pride. Ego and pride is the downfall of any martial artist. It could bring you here, but are the consequences worth the reward? It's up to you.
Yeah, that's the thing that I always nowadays it's not so much of an issue. I train. I'm back to like training once, maybe twice per week if I'm lucky, if I'm feeling squirrely. But I go in now with this ideal of let me just go on the mat, let me get my body into it, let me get some reps in. I'm not here, this isn't the Coliseum. This is, this is Elk Ridge, Maryland. Like you're not getting a trophy here. All you're
Love
doing,
to stop by
and
your gym, by the way.
what's that?
I said I would love to take a trip down to your gym.
Oh, like we would love to have you, dude. It's. I love my gym. I just love the people there, the culture there. It's like I'm, you know, a self-proclaimed outcast. But anytime I walk in there, I always feel welcome. I always feel like I'm at home. And you want to believe that's the feel at all gyms. I visited a couple different gyms, and I feel welcomed as a guest. But when I go to my gym, I feel like even if I haven't seen anyone in months, years, it's like it feels like family.
Absolutely.
Even if it's somebody I only talk to like briefly, you know, you feel that connection. So, yeah, definitely. We'll talk afterward, and same. It's like my one teammate and I we've been talking about like wanting to do like road trips and go see other gyms. So, you know, that's part of this podcast is making those connections, and just wanting to. I don't compete. So for me, visiting other gyms and rolling with other people is kind of my way of really, you know, getting that additional knowledge and filling people out.
It's
So,
it's more or less like So I explain to the kids class this way. I always tell them I'm like, hey, like, who plays video games? And they're like, yeah, me. And they're like, all right, like, what do you guys play? They're like, Fortnite. I'm like, all right, what do we do in Fortnite? We try to upgrade our armor, upgrade our guns, or whatnot. So with that being said, when you're visiting a different gym, you're kind of just adding to your armor. You're adding something into your arsenal. And the most cheesiest thing I say, which I'm the king of like being super cheesy and cringe, my wife says, I have dad jokes and I'm not even a dad yet. I tell everyone, look, would you rather go to a restaurant that has 4 items on the menu, or do you want to go to a restaurant that has 12? I was like, so take that into perspective of when you're visiting a different gym, you came in with 10 good items on your menu. But now with this person you're rolling with, they showed you something from Deepak. This person showed you something from De La Hiva. This person's showing you the honey hole. This person show you how to invert. So now you're just adding a bunch of things on the menu. Now you got spaghetti, you got pasta, you got burgers, you got ribs. So you are the chef. Build your menu the way you want it, as diverse as you want it. There can be specials, but make sure you have an answer for everything. Make sure you can connect with every customer. So that's as cheesy as I get when it comes to adding to your arsenal. Add to your menu.
No, dude, that's actually makes perfect sense and super relatable though. You know, it's I always think of it, and you always have to relate things to something that's palatable. Palatable. I'm gonna edit that out because I sound like I can't talk. You always have to relate things, or connect it to something relatable for you.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, food. That's a great analogy there. Uh, I I look at just again building these relationships, and then seeing other gyms, talking to other people. There's a movie, Interview with the Vampire.
I love it. Absolutely.
Uh, in in the movie, early on in the movie, Christian Slater, he's sitting with Louis, Brad Pitt's character, because he's going to interview him. And he says, "I'm a collector of lives," and that's what I think of when I think of jiu-jitsu, and even doing this podcast to this extent, being a collector. You know, it's like not everything's going to fit your game, but like you said, like putting to when you get your armor, you might find a piece that might work. Some pieces might not, but it's all right. You adjust it as needed. So um, it's always fun trying to figure out, especially with the kid students, especially it's like, what can you connect your martial art to for them, whether it be video games, whether it be food, whether it be movies, cartoons. So it's always interesting in that regard.
Very, and I believe it's not what you're teaching, it's how you connect. So just going back to what you're saying, like, because you could have a world champion teach you the best moves in the world, but if they can't connect with you, that's not going to stick. You got to learn how to read the room. But one thing that did help me with that was bartending. So I've been bartending for 13 years. So yeah, that definitely helped me. I could speak to anyone. I could speak to a rock and it could tell me its best friend. Like, so I don't know. That's just me. I'm very cheesy. I can roll with the punches type of ordeal. So,
well, I mean, being able to kind of mingle and get into interact, read in the room. So it's like I'm introverted. I'm extremely introverted.
same. Believe it or not.
But there's a thing to that though. I think it's almost like we're introverted, but when we have to, it's like we can turn it on and go. Because if you give me the choice between having to go out to, when I used to work for Pandora Jewelry,
Okay.
and their Christmas parties, going to the Christmas party was always a big deal. They had prizes and everything, games. It was a fun time. But me being an introvert, it's like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do it. It's like, okay, just go. Once I'm there, it's like your back is against the wall. It's like, all right, turn it on and go. And I think that there is something to that. Not all introverts, but I think, that extroverted introvert or introverted extrovert.
Yeah.
I think that's where we fall into that, where it's like, look, we're fine being in a crowd, but there's a recharge point. I think over the holidays, Thanksgiving, I had to, after we got home, my wife was looking at me. She was like, "Are you okay?" It's like all my family, my family's from Detroit. So, when everybody's down here, it's wild. And I'm sitting here on the couch and she goes, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, I have to recharge," because all the energy that was put out, mingling and playing and dancing and talking and, having a good time. Now I need to recharge. So we're there. I hear you.
It's a big time overload. We actually talked about this few days ago, where I told you I was very insecure about posting, you know, certain things, certain contents and stuff. And you said, hey, man, if you teach in front of a bunch of people, like it should, like, not saying it shouldn't be an issue, but imagine, if I teach in front of 40 people, that's usually my class, like 20 to 40 people ish. But now imagine me doing stand up comedy. Like if 40 people are retaining the things that I'm telling them, I should have no problem showing my content to anyone else because they're retaining it for a reason. And so that I am going to say that I attribute, like, that you instilled some confidence in me as well to constantly just, all right, I'm just going to keep pushing out content. So I told my wife about that. I was like, yo, man, I was like, this dude, kind of like said something that kind of like hit hard to me. So like, I take that. I take that for sure.
Good. I'm glad that, that helped. Because I always look at this social media thing, especially as this, for me, it was accidental. I was just posting on my regular, my personal page, jiu-jitsu stuff. There was a young lady, she's still on Instagram. I don't think she still trains anymore, but her name was BJJ Girl Emma. And she would always post jiu-jitsu stuff. And I was marginally into jiu-jitsu. I hadn't started training yet.
Okay.
But I was watching a lot of MMA, and I was like, okay, I'm going to give it a try. But I was still posting a lot of stuff just to my personal page, not really thinking anything of it. Then a teammate of mine approached me and asked me to run his website. Mind you, I don't have any knowledge of running a website. He asked me to run his Facebook page as well, which happened to be BJJ Wiki. I said to him, was like, do you mind if I do an Instagram account instead? So you do whatever you want. Make it, as long as you're making the content grow. So I started doing that, and slowly but surely, I had to find a niche. I had to figure out what am I doing, because I wasn't posting content of my own. So I had to figure out, what am I doing here? Suddenly I post, 3 things and it picked up, some traction. And I got a following. And I realized, okay, you know what I can do? Since I have a following, let me find other accounts that don't have big followings, repost, but make sure to credit them. So that way we're growing off each other.
Yeah.
And then, as I post, people know, okay, that's the source. We're going to go there because, and I'll see people repost something that I posted. And I know they got it from me because that post that I found was buried 6 years prior on the other person's page. So I know they didn't go there and get it. Also, I change music on post. And if I hear the music that I use, is like, you got that from me, but I don't say anything like, hey, you credit me. Like, no, because it's not my post. But yeah, this whole thing kind of happened almost really by accident. So, now when I see like actual content creators like yourself, it's like, run with it. It's like anything that anyone has to say on any social media platform, if they're not giving constructive criticism, this is going to sound real fucking crude, but they can go fuck themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
it's funny that you say that, because so the post that you put up of mine that you shared of that twister, mind you, I'm not showing like, all right, this is how we seatbelt, this is how we enter truck. I'm showing like foot position, hand position on the leg. I wasn't showing like a proper entry. I'm like showing like, okay, like this is how we're starting. So like that's why it was zoomed in. And some kid goes, I would roll out of that. Like, or somebody will roll out of that. And I'm like, bro, I went on his page, and I don't know if this is okay to stay on here, but like on his page, I'm like, you're a blue belt. Like, I don't like to pull rank like that, but I'm like, oh, and I wanted to like put something like, hey man, we can roll. But I'm like, all right, first of all, I'm never an aggressive person like that. But I was like, and then my wife goes, babe, it's social media. She's like, why are you gonna get mad at social media? She's like, you've done probably more things in a month that this kid has ever done in like his whole lifetime of training jits. Everyone's gonna have an opinion, but opinions do not matter because they're not fact. And I'm like, oh, that's why we have our wives, man. Like, that's why we have our persons. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, like, I'm like, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not gonna say anything. So, yeah, I kept shut.
No, Instagram. So I hate when I hear people say they're shadow banned because a lot of times it's not so much the shadow ban as much as the algorithms changed.
Yeah.
And we didn't, and we're not keeping up with the algorithm. And I don't know how to do it. Again, I get lucky. I get lucky as fuck. But someone commented on, I don't even know what the post was back in July. And I replied back to them on the post and I called them a cunt.
Oh.
And Instagram swooped in quick and was like, hey, you're in danger of losing your account. I was like, son, chill. So from that point though, all my engagement, everything was really low until really I want to say end of October, it picked back up. And then I started kind of reapproaching things differently. Because the way my account is set up, I think part of what helps with my following is that you have to follow me in order to leave a comment.
Oh, that's smart. See, I don't even know how to do that.
So, yeah, someone asked me how, and I was trying to explain. I was like, I'm going to be honest. I saw it once, and all my accounts are set up that way, so I have to know how to do it somehow, some way. I think I Forrest Gump my way into it every time. But now when someone has something shitty to say, I reply back with "Thank you for the follow." I take it as this: if you're going to come on, especially to my post, you have to follow me to make a comment. It's kind of like, look, I'm going to get what I get, so thanks for the follow. But also, now you're bringing engagement and traction to the page. So, there it is for that. It is like, look, you guys suck, for being, closed-minded and jerks. But thanks for the engagement. Thanks for the follows. And, Instagram sees it.
No. So it's cool. Like, so after you put up one of my video, dude, I got like 40 follows after that. No, what the fuck? I literally like, what the fuck? And I was like, oh, cool. But I was like, oh, I like told my wife, I was like, he got like 13 or like 12, 13,000 views on that. I only got like 4,000, but she's like, look at your followers. And I'm like, oh shit. I was like, damn, you're right. And I just checked that out like yesterday. If not, so I have to thank you, man. Like, cause it definitely helps. Like anything helps. Like I love it, So I have to really thank.
I mean, thank you to you as well. Because I mean, again, like I say, I'm not a content creator. I don't know what to call it, but you all are the real creators. So thank you. For first off reaching out to me. And then, because I follow so many accounts that the algorithm does. Someone just posted something today. I didn't know they were still on Instagram. And I looked like this person's been posting like daily for the past 3 months. I haven't seen anything until today. So the algorithm just is weird. So, thank you for, making me aware, because, as soon as we talked, I was like, all right, I got you. I'm gonna throw you into the queue right now. Shoot me, if you got something you want repost it, tag me. At the very least, it goes to the stories.
Yeah.
So,
and I didn't want to seem greedy, and I was like, oh no. I was like, oh man, there's so many things I want to like show this dude, but I'm like telling my wife, I was like, babe, like I'm not gonna like put everything on there, because I was like, this is his own shit. Excuse my language, but this is his own stuff. So I was just happy that you even answered me. So like I was just, I don't know, I was pretty lucky.
Well, I mean, again, I appreciate you reaching out. Like most DMs go into what the request box. So most times it's usually like someone saying, it's a gi company, like, hello, ma'am, sir. We are a gi company. And I'm like, oh geez, not this again. Although there were like 2 legitimate gi companies that reached out to me. I was like, oh shit, like you're real, like you're actually a real person. Okay, cool. But most of the times in the request, that's what's there. So I click, and then what I tend to do is I'll get somebody that'll send me like they'll just send a video. First thing I do is I check to see if they follow me. If they don't follow me, immediately delete. I think you didn't even do that. You actually asked me about reposting. I was like, and that to me, when you said, how do I get reposted? I was like, that's this right here. This is the first step. Just ask, and I'm going to repost regardless, because at the end of the day, this isn't mine. You know, like this is all of ours. This community is all of ours. So in order for this community to grow and to be strong, it's we got to work together. We got to share together instead of people seeing a technique and saying, "Oh, well, I'll easily roll out of that, or that won't work on me." It's like, why don't you look at the technique, and
Yeah.
instead of letting your ego take over, look at it and see what you can gain from that technique.
And and especially like you actually, out of like a lot of like the jiu-jitsu pages, you have like one of the biggest followings I've seen. So that's again rewinding back. Wow, I was like, wow, man, like this dude actually answered me, you know. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, people need to like let go of the fact that like it won't work on me and just appreciate the art in general. So yeah, I don't know. People really need to start appreciating the art for what it is, and not looking at the negative part. Albert Einstein said the one thing where like he was doing like mathematics on a board, and he answered like, I'm gonna butcher this, but like all these like mathematic equations like correct, and then one was wrong, and everybody focused on the one thing that was wrong and not everything that was correct.
That's weirdly, that's kind of the way of the world. And I know what you're talking about. He answered 99 of them out of 100 correct, and then the one that he got wrong, he wrote it wrong on purpose, and he made it egregiously wrong, so wrong that it stood out.
Like, are you dumb?
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, he got that wrong, and it's like, well, like, but what about the 99 that he got right? And it goes the same for, you can do 99 good things for somebody, and the second that you do the one wrong, or you're not there from that one time,
Yeah.
they label you as a bad person, or they label you as unreliable. And it's like, look, we need to, like you said, we need to focus on the positive. What can we gain from this? Like, how is this helping us grow? Versus seeing one thing is like, oh well, that's not going to work. It's like, really? Because I'm guilty of that even on the mat. I've got hit with so many simple sweeps where I'm like, that would never work. Oh shit, it worked. like, are you serious? Like, so everybody looks at a video and looks at something like, there's no way that could work. But then once you're caught in it, it's like, oh, like ow, 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 my Achilles,
So
or my ACL. Like,
yeah,
yeah, that's called the heel hook.
I do a lot of things like so I bait a lot. So, and you're gonna see that like when you start getting to those higher rankings, like you start setting things up like it's fishing a hook, man. So what I do is I throw up a lot of lazy submissions sometimes. So maybe I throw like I get somebody's back and I'll have like my left hook is a little bit loose because they can tripod up and they start to shake me off. What little but do they know I'm actually fishing for a guillotine, or I'm fishing for an armbar from me taking your back. So I'll throw up lazy submissions, like I'll be on your back, I'll be backpack, I have my right hook in deep, left hook in shallow, and you start tripoding. Oh, because I'm a little bit too high. But once they start shaking me off, I switch my grip, I go guillotine, or I go armbar, or I go inverted trap. It's like that's just kind of what I do, because you're focusing on the thing that I did wrong, but you're not focusing on all the things that I just did right. So I always tell everybody, set up everything 4 moves ahead. If you're 4 moves ahead, you're going to fucking finish phenomenal. But if you're just focusing on the home run, it's not going to get you anywhere. You're probably going to strike out. Focus on 4 things ahead of time, not the home run. Because the home run, if you're shit, then you're SOL. You're shit out of luck if you fuck up. So,
No, I couldn't agree more. And that's like, at one point I used to do that with the armbar and the triangle. I have little stubby legs. Triangles just like I struggle with them, but I still shoot for them.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, he's going for the triangle." Nah, like not this guy. I just want the arm. Thanks.
You don't see the armbar, like, yeah, but it's people like, because again, like, I'm 5'5", so when I throw my triangles up, they're not really gonna get anywhere. Like, especially against a guy like, I think the heaviest guy I roll with is like 260 ish. So like, I'll throw it up there, but I'm like, dude, I'm just going for an armbar, just like you said, or I'm going omoplata. And my omoplatas honestly just set me up for like my leg lock entries. Like, that's all I'm really trying to do. I'm not trying to take up your upper body. I know you're super strong there, but if I can catch a heel hook, you bet your ass I'm going for a heel hook.
Yeah, I always find that funny that that's kind of a basic concept that we've always known throughout history. No matter what we're doing, whether it's basketball, whether it's football, anything. The lower body, yes, it's strong in terms of like you can squat a lot, you're walking, you're running all the time, but like in football, hit them low. Like,
Yeah.
If you're running at me and I try to like, if I try to blast you like with my shoulder, like going head to head, I'm probably going to get trucked because you've got all this momentum on your side.
Yeah.
If I go low or matador you and, kind of step to the side and then go low, the legs are very, very vulnerable. And that's the same in jiu-jitsu too. I mean, that's why the leg lock game is where it's at now and only getting better is because like if you go for an armbar on me, I mean, I can find ways to kind of survive that.
Yeah.
You're going for a triangle. I got a short, stubby neck. Like it's tough. But if you're setting up something, to get to my leg, okay. I just don't got anything there. I mean, you get the ankle lock. I'm done. You go for the heel hook. Yeah, you don't even gotta just give me the nod. I'll let you know you got it.
I do that all the time. I'll like catch my student, like, look, I'm like one of those higher belts. Like, if I catch you in a bad position, I just stop and I'm literally looking into like the windows of your soul. Like, I'm looking you eye to eye, waiting for you to realize where you are. I'll have a heel hook and I'll just hold it there, and I'm like, are you gonna move? Are you gonna move? And they're so preoccupied in everything, like I said before, everything I did wrong, but they're not realizing that their heel is right in the crevice of my bicep and my forearm. And I'm like, I could take this home whenever I want. So it's up to you for you to fucking move. Just move. Please, please help me, like Kevin Hart. Help me. So yeah.
I have a teammate, a really, really good friend of mine. Like, I always call him a teammate. I mean, he's one of my best friends, but I always refer to him as a teammate. But he'll get the heel hook, and we'll just lock eyes. And I look and I'm like, you got it. Like we both know what it is. And like there's no, and he would never crank it, but it's like as soon as he gets it, I'm like, yeah, I know. Like, yep, you got it. It's fine. Like I'm not even gonna pretend. I wouldn't dare say no, like play it through. Like, fuck no, it's a heel hook. We're in a practice room.
No, live to fight another day. Don't be a hero.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I tell my students that all the time. Like, hey, yo, dude, ain't nothing wrong with tapping. I've tapped to a blue belt before. Well, I mean, I've let them tap me, but I've done it where it's like, all right, man, like get me in that bad position. And I realized, oh shit, this is too deep. I really, really gave it to him. So I'm like, tap. Like, I'm good. Like, I really don't care. For one, it's going to help me know, all right, my threshold. Two, it's going to help boost their morale where they're like, okay, I just tapped out a black belt. I'm going to try that. So it's a win-win, to be honest. There's a part in the game when it comes to jiu-jitsu, and this is how you know you're working with a very high-level person, is when, now this may not make sense, but it's when you're rolling, let's say me and like one of like my blue or purple belts roll. I'm going to give them the best of me at my blue and purple belt stage. I don't know if you ever watched Dragon Ball Z at all.
Yes.
So I am going to give them me at like KO Cannon. Like let's say that. Or like Super Saiyan 1. Let's say that. Let's say you're a purple belt. I'm so right now, like as a black belt, you're like, let's say like a Super Saiyan God. I'm gonna drop down to like Super Saiyan 1, and I'm gonna give you that exact same technique, that flow, that energy, that explosiveness as me as here, as your purple belt level. And if you can beat me in that position, then you fucking earned it. So, and then that's how you know you're rolling with a very high level person, because they can meet your energy, they can meet your skill set. Now it's up to you to be able to capitalize and obtain certain techniques and absorb the situation as for what it is given to you. Um, it's hard to explain, but that's why I'm like trying to explain it in like the Dragon Ball Z, like, sort of way, because I love Dragon Ball Z. And so I tell it to my students, they're like mind blown, and I'm like, yeah. So like I'll go with like a purple belt, a brown belt, a blue belt, and like I'll give them that look. All right, man, I'm dropping to your level. You have to best me now, and if you do, then you earned it. So
That makes perfect sense. I like that. I like that a lot because, it's you don't think of it as like, a white belt rolling with a black belt. It's like, look, I'll come down to your level,
yeah,
beat me on this level, or blue belt, I'll come down to your level, beat me at your level. Versus, hey, I'm a black belt going against a blue belt.
beat me.
It's like, it's like I got a long way to go. I can't come up there.
It's very disheartening for the lower belts, for the newer guys. Like we saw Vegeta do. Vegeta did it to Broly. Like when he's like, "All right, now I'm going to show you my full form." Like, so it does happen all the time. I mean, like for any of the anime, like Dragon Ball watchers, like I hope that transitions to you. But yeah, like that's the best way to describe it, man. It's just like lowering your power level to their level, lowering your rank to their rank, and being able to control it in that fashion. And not letting your ego get to you where it's like, I'm gonna best you because you just got me. Like, no, keep it there, because it's gonna help you, remember certain principles that maybe you did forget as a purple belt, as a blue belt, as a white belt. That happens to me all the time. My cousin, she just started training 3 months ago. I like let her get on my back, and she almost finished the choke. And I'm like, shit, damn, like how the hell did she get there? And I'm like, I had to ask her, and she told me, I don't know. And I'm like, damn, now I got to figure it out. Mind you, I'm in jiu-jitsu for 14 years now, 20 years of wrestling. Like, I have to like now figure the pieces out. Maybe there was something I forgot as a white belt that me putting myself down to that level, she bested me. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong at all.
Not at all. Love it. That's a great way to explain it, and also it's a great way to kind of end it all on that note. So, Brian, thank you for doing this, dude. This has been a great conversation, a great time. We want to have you back on. We got to do this again. Now that we got that first initiation out of the way, we got the flow together. Now next time it's on the Dragon Ball Z. Now that I know.
Oh, man, I'm cool with that. We can speak for hours. So yeah, no, I'm definitely with that. Thank you for having me, man. It was a pleasure.
No problem. Do you have any shout outs or mentions that you want to drop on here before we get out?
No, damn, it's so bad. I really don't have any that come to mind. I'll be honest. I mean, if you could look up my YouTube channel, it is Bry underscore Jits. I do a lot of MMA breakdowns and jiu-jitsu breakdowns, and as well, and on TikTok I do the same thing. Bry underscore Jits. Actually, no, it's Grayson B210.
I will put that in the show notes and then link everybody to it. And as always, for everyone else, appreciate the hell out of you all. Thank you for listening. If y'all have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me. You can find me at bjj.wiki on Instagram, or Off the Mats Podcast on Instagram as well. I want to give a big shout out to my good friends over at Nerd Rage Radio, Bobby, Joe, Chris, Marilyn, Phil, Raul, Ricky Ticky, all of y'all. Nerd Rage is how I got started doing podcasts. I've been doing podcasts with them for many, many years, and I guess it was about time to go do my own thing because they do comics and stuff, and I do sports. So they say, get the hell out of here. So thank you guys. I love you all. Big shout out to them. Also, big shout out to my good friend Paige, also known as BJJ Mama. Go give her a follow. She's been a guest on here several times, and always like to promote her page. She has a lot of good positive content. So go give her a follow. And also, last shout out my other podcast. So you like horror? It's about scary movies and stuff. We just did a review of the 2022 movie Barbarian, and upcoming, my wife and I, we're going to sit down. We're going to talk about holiday horror. So I haven't got anything set for it, so it's going to be a surprise for all of us once we do it. So go check it out. It's on Instagram. All words separated by underscores. Otherwise, again, thank you, everyone. I love you all to death. Without you all listening and following this podcast, would be kind of lonely. So thank you. And as always, you guys keep listening. I'm going to keep doing these shows. Thank you, everyone, and bye.
Deep with it. Now let me sing a song.